Master Splinter.
Master Splinter.
Crew Adam.
Crew. Or I have a press is like, nah, just coach is fine.
Coach is fine.
Yeah, but just Adam, mate, we're not training, right? So funny, like, because in Thailand they're so respectful, right? So they see me, like, when they see me in the shopping center, be like, Professor Adam! I'm like, what is that, right?
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, I'm like, and I call the guy, he's my elder, right? P, you can just call me Adam, it's okay. I said, okay, Professor. No, that just makes it feel awkward. And when the kids, like, they look at you like, what? But you're wearing clothes. I'm like, I do wear clothes, buddy. I'm not always in a gi.
Yeah.
But that's true. When I think about my first martial arts instructor, he's always in a uniform.
Always.
Always,
Yeah.
right?
Probably got married in a uniform.
Yeah.
So, first question.
Oh.
Let's start with an easy one. Who's your all-time BJJ hero?
Oh, that's tough. My all-time. I have BJJ heroes, but in specific categories. Like my all-time BJJ hero that inspired me, of course, was Hoist.
Yeah.
And then my all-time MMA BJJ hero, Valley Tudo, was of course Hickson, right? And then my BJJ hero for MMA, ADCC, and gi was Zamario. But for me, like my all-time pure grappling BJJ would be Marcelo. And then just BJJ wizard would be for me Liborio. So that's how I could categorize. Because I also feel like it's a bit unfair to say like this is the all-time,
The number one,
you know. But I'd say that the style that I'd gravitate to the most would be Marcelo Garcia.
Okay.
Yeah. And then Marcelo is just an amazingly beautiful human being.
Yeah.
You know. And but for me, like the top in regards to just being the wizard is Libo. Yeah, for sure.
And so, I mean, training Muay Thai for decades, the way that you have boxing as well, and then obviously the umbrella of MMA. What are your thoughts currently on CTE and brain trauma, right? Because the past few years, that's really become a concern where, 20 years ago, it was like if you had a concussion or a headache, that's a badge of honor, And nowadays, people...
Or push through it is a badge of honor.
Yeah. And it was like, oh, no, it's no big deal. But now, 20 years into the sport, people are going like, oh, wait, there's a drawback to hard sparring all the time.
Yeah,
How do you think about that moving forward, training up-and-coming guys? And how big of a concern is CTE for you personally?
Huge, because I've seen the effects of what it does to retired athletes, and then just on a bigger scale, on how it affects their life and their family life, right? So yeah, I'm a big proponent of play. Like I've always enjoyed hard conditioning, right? And lots of playful sparring, right? And even like when I was younger, I hated hard sparring, right? I just thought in the back of my head, I was like, what can I can't get done with a lot of playful sparring that I couldn't really get done in hard sparring? And the answer is not much, right? Like I think once or 2 times a week, you can do hard sparring, but also the volume of it is quite short.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Because the idea is about building reflexes, not dulling them. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, I'm a big proponent of play. That's why I think that in a way I'm quite happy with a lot of my training. Most of my training in Muay Thai has been in Thailand.
Yeah.
Right, and the Thais just love to play.
Yeah.
Love to play, and I like that philosophy too.
Yeah.
So I'm a big proponent of play.
Yeah.
You know, explore, play, because the thing is, like, if you go hard on conditioning, you can play longer. Do you know what I mean? So, but if you go hard on conditioning and hard on sparring, you can't play or train longer, right? So, intense conditioning, lots of playing, right? Yeah. And then once a week, have hard sparring. Yeah. But even that, what I think is, like, you have positional sparring, like you have in Jiu-Jitsu, you apply it to your Muay Thai, like Muay Thai sparring or your MMA sparring. You allocate a certain situation, right? Yeah. And then say, all right, this is what we have to work out of. You know. Another one is, like, I like to play is about regaining your balance, and I got this one off Barry Robinson, where he would spar, and then he would say, all right, spin, and then we had to focus a point on the wall, and then spin, 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 spin. All right, go back to sparring.
You're all over the place.
You're all disorientated, right?
Yeah.
But that kind of imitates the disorientation that you feel when you get clipped sometimes, right? And that nervousness of, I got to regain my balance. But the best thing is that I don't really lose brain cells doing that drill.
Yeah, exactly.
You know? Yeah. And that little bit of anxiety that you feel when, like, oh, when is he going to call it out? When is he going to call it out? That sometimes can almost emulate the situation when you have to actually really spar, like fight. You know?
Fight in the ring.
Yeah.
For real.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, obviously, coming from such a strong Muay Thai background and then crossing over into MMA, specifically with the stance, what's the biggest difference or kind of adjustment you have to make if you come from a base Muay Thai background to MMA? Is it the footwork that's completely different? Do you stand completely differently? Or can you maintain most of what you're doing? But what for you is the biggest difference once you cross over from Muay Thai to MMA?
Oh, definitely was the stance.
Yeah.
Stance. Yeah, definitely. But in regards to techniques and movements, like, you know, if you're an advocate of switching stances, like in Muay Thai, you do it, right? Like, you got switch left kicks, you know, you switch left kick, switch fake, and then your left hand from jab becomes a cross, and then you can pivot off your right hook as a southpaw, and then deliver a left leg kick, and then get back into an orthodox kind of stance. You know, that's also quite, you know, useful, and you can see it now a lot more now that you see it in MMA. But it's just the stances are a little lower.
Because of the takedown.
Yeah, but the threat of the takedown, you know what I mean? But there's really not much, you know? But just going into an MMA fight, and you have good Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, good wrestling, and good Muay Thai, but you adopt a Muay Thai stance, not good.
Yeah.
Not good.
And then you've recently come back from Singapore. You worked there for 2 years.
At
right?
Evolve,
At Evolve. And what was your biggest takeaway from working at Evolve?
Biggest takeaway? It sucks building like good connections and relationships with fighters, and then you have to go. Yeah. You know, so my biggest takeaway is the side of, like, when you build a good relationship with a fighter, and then for whatever reason, like, either you go or they go, it's just like, now you just gotta be in a position where I hope, you know, I would just wish you all the best because of circumstances, for whatever reason. But yeah, just that, my biggest takeaway is those moments when it feels like, you know, you take for granted.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, I just love those moments. Yeah, that's my biggest takeaway, if I could give it.
So, if you had 1 minute to convince a no-gi guy to do gi, how would you convince him? Because a lot of people nowadays just want to do no gi, right?
Yeah.
And then the traditional guys all love the gi. And then, especially for MMA, you also don't need the gi as much. But how important is the gi still for you? And how would you convince someone to still invest the time in
Because those are
the
two
gi?
questions, right?
Yeah.
But so I have to say, how would I convince someone that's no gi to go to gi?
Yeah.
Right?
Or
Now,
to at least do it.
it depends, right? If they rub me the wrong way, I'm just gonna stick it to their face. I'm gonna say, hey, listen, name me one no gi champion that isn't a black belt in gi, or at least a gi champion, and I'll be like, right? But but then in that case, then I'm not really caring if they do cross over. They just, I'm like, nah, I just want to tell it how it is. But the other thing is in regards to, if I'm sincerely trying to tell someone, listen, I think, training in no-gi training in gi brings a lot of benefit. I will say that's, like I said, like at the end of the day, if you're looking to do jiu-jitsu, not just, in a short period of time, if you really want to like take this as a journey, I said it's beneficial to learn gi, because at the end of the day, you won't be able to keep up with a lot of the explosive young guns, right? The thing about the gi is that you're able to anchor and slow things down, right? And also in regards to self-defense, it's more realistic because we walk around wearing clothes.
Yeah.
Right? I've never gotten into a situation when someone with spats and a rash goes, come on. And I'm like, the giveaway was someone walking up to you in the middle of the street with everyone's clothes and he's only got spats and a rash. And, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think in regards to saying that, I'd say, listen, number one, longevity-wise, there's if you just invest a little bit in gi, it'll definitely help you with no gi, especially with your defenses. Yeah, you have to be. If you want to include training where you include heel hooks as well as gi related submissions, right? Wow, that's just a lot to take on board.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, your defense will be tight. So, and then in regards to also going for attacks, you get to play with a lot more tools, right? So I think in regards to that, that's also a lot more stimulating, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I just say like no-gi is fun, right? Gi, I think I like how Eddie Bravo put it once. He said, you train gi, and then when you train no-gi, it's like you've taken off you're like driving with the handbrake on is with the gi. As soon as you do no-gi, you can poof, take off the handbrake and just go, And also in no-gi, if I'm honest, right, sometimes I can just slide out positions a lot easier. Gi, there's
You have to have a technical answer.
Yeah, it's less forgiving.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean that's what I would say. Cool. That'd be my approach.
Yeah. And then I feel anybody who starts martial arts goes through this little journey, right? It's jiu-jitsu, it's wrestling, it doesn't matter what it is. In the beginning, it's new movements, so it's quite stimulating for you, and you're like a kid in a candy store, right? And then about 2 years in, the body starts reminding you that it's starting to break down, right?
Yeah.
So everybody loves to train. Everybody loves to train.
Who doesn't, yeah?
But the more boring part is talking about recovery, and conditioning is also super important. So how important is that for you, and has it been over the years? How do you approach recovery now? So not just rolling.
With dread.
With dread. But do you have specific things that you do for recovery? What do you pay attention to the most? Because nowadays it's like, oh, you need to do an ice bath and this and this and this and this and this.
I think mobility.
Yeah. The number one thing.
No more about like how much you can bench or squat. It's like how many lunges can you do now? How many push-ups can you do, right? And still have good range of motion. Do you know what I mean? Someone was mucking around. They said, listen, mate, because the older I get, to realize that I've never been assaulted by a barbell. I thought about that sentence. I'm like, that's pretty cheeky, but yeah, and it's true. So, in regards to martial arts, mobility is key. With also strength within a long range of motion.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'd say mobility.
Mobility.
Yeah.
Needs to be prioritized. Doesn't matter what you do.
Beginning and end.
Beginning and end.
Yeah, because you can be really flexible, but then you don't have the strength within the range of motion. And I bugged up my back once because it's just me being me. So after my hip surgery, I have a resurfaced hip. We call it BHR, Birmingham hip resurfaced, right? And I was worried about losing my range of motion. So I found this, it was a Japanese stretching manual, and it said side splits within 3 to 4 months. And I'm like, I'm gonna bang this puppy out in 2. So I did get the full range of motion, but I didn't have the strength and the stability in the position. And I bugged up my lower back. And my wife was like, you gotta be smart about this, babe, right? But yeah. Mobility and strengthen your range of motion. Do you know what I mean? Because there's gonna be a point when you can't move someone, right? So you're gonna either have to be able to hold on, right? Or move yourself.
Yes,
right?
Yes.
Mobility is definitely a priority for me now.
Nice.
Yeah, even more so than explosivity and strength. I'd rather have strength in range of motion and mobility.
Fascinating. So, can you vividly remember your worst day on the mat? Like, rock bottom, where you were like, "This is the worst day ever."
Worst day ever.
Could have been a really tough roll or just a tough training session.
Injury-free, right? You're talking about injury-free.
Injury-free, just more emotional and mentally. You're like, I'm really close to quitting and just not doing this anymore.
I don't think I've ever had the fear of quitting. My biggest fear was not being able to find a way to continue. But worst day on the mat. Like for quitting, I don't think I've ever had one. But just life choices. Well, I have to say, life choices. I said hard days. I can vividly remember 2 instructors just smashing me. It was Fernando Paradedo, right? I love to death, and Luizão Brito, right? Because he always compliment me after he smashed me. He's like, like strong. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just getting smashed by you. Yeah. But moments I sit down and going, why am I bothering with this? Was when I was training with Marcelo when I was a brown belt. I'd be like,
what's the point?
What's the point? What's the point? And I just remember training. I thought, today I'm just gonna try my hardest to not get sub. And then Marcelo pulled me aside. I said, Adam, come on, man. You're just running away. I said, to be fair, it's just only you. I'm only running away from you every time, right? But yeah, I remember sitting down in on my bed at night, like, man, but with Liborio, I was just always fascinated. He had an answer for everything. Yeah. Right. But when I was training with Marcelo, it was like, man, I thought I'd give him a little bit of a run.
Especially if you train with somebody for a while, you'd think, man, I should be making progress here. I should be doing better.
Yeah. And then when you see him pull out the same move all the time with different people.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
All the time. So yeah, I'd say I can remember that. Yeah, I was in Florida, 2008, December.
Yeah, and you were just like, that was a rough time. Rough time for Adam.
Mentally, it was it was like a rough time. I was like, man. And I thought, well, at least I got Muay Thai. So I had that comfort, right? I'm like, I can always be like, you know? Yeah. So yeah, 2008, December.
And then the other side of that coin was like, what's your favorite memory or your best day on the mat so far? Is there a specific one that stands out?
Yeah. When I got my purple belt, and I was, only after the match, I was told I was the first non-Brazilian to win the Rio Grande do Sul Cup and the first non-Brazilian to win the Niterói Cyclone Cup as a purple belt. But the one in Porto Alegre, for me, that was the best. I can still remember that. Two things, because I remember when Shahir walked across the mats at the competition. Everyone started chanting, because I think Gladiator was around that time, right? So everyone's like, Zer Maximus, Zer Maximus. Yeah. That's one point in the competition I remember. And the second one was when I won. I was just so grateful I didn't get subbed, right?
Yeah.
That was when I remember when I got my hand raised and I looked over, and then the guys from the team just pulled up the netting from the floor on the basketball court, and they just kind of just ran over, and they were picking me up and throwing me up in the air, and they were just like shouting Adam's hours in Portuguese. It was so cool. And it was so cool because they were shouting Adam's hours to rub it into the other guys. Because remember I told you about that story when they were teasing the guys about how, like, oh, this guy fights jiu-jitsu easy and he just got his purple belt really quick. Like, I didn't get my purple belt really quick. It took me 6 years, right? But they didn't know that, right? So I was like, yeah. We were shit-stirring that team. I'm like, man, thank you for letting me know later.
Yeah.
But yeah, that time, that I can say that specific time I can remember. Yeah, that was pretty cool. Yeah.
So most people that train jiu-jitsu, I mean, the black belt is like put on the pedestal, right? And a lot of people chase that belt, and they also have this idea that, man, I'm suffering now, and I'm getting beat up now, and I'm struggling now, but I can't wait to become a black belt, because when I'm a black belt, it's all just going to be, rainbows and unicorns, and I'm going to be dominating and wushu finger, and like I'm going to touch guys. Yeah, exactly. Right? It's like I'm going to float into the gym and float back out, right? Yeah. And then I think a lot of people don't realize that grappling is hard, will always be hard, has always been hard. And yes, there is levels, but in your opinion, what were either your personal or what you see with your own students, the biggest misconceptions that people have about the black belt, like getting there?
It's not even that. It's like every time they think when they get to the next belt, it's going to be easier for them to handle the people sometimes below them. And that's not true. Like, I get to blue belt, I'll be able to handle white belts a lot better. And then you'll get some white belts that are just, man, tough.
Yeah.
And then you say, all right, so maybe if I get to purple belt, then I'll be able to handle the blue belts better. They always think that if they get there, the belt below is going to be easier to handle. But like for me, I don't know. Maybe it was the crew that I grew up with, and inadvertently, maybe not being sandbaggers, but we didn't really chase belts. We kind of, it's like a badge of honor to be the white belt giving hell to purple belts.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And I always liked that. So I know, like, if I'm being really honest, I always found it really, I know with jiu-jitsu, I felt like I didn't like chasing the belts. I just wanted to be a really damn good white belt and a really damn good blue belt and a really damn good purple belt. And also, I think in pride, just me personally, I thought when I get to blue belt, I want to be that person that is so good as a blue belt and purple belt that when I get to a blue belt, nothing's going to faze me.
Yeah.
Right? And when when I get to purple belt, I want to be in the level of a brown belt. So when I do end up getting purple belt, nothing's going to faze me, you know?
Yeah.
Because I just don't like surprises.
Yeah.
Right? And yeah, but I remember my wife telling me, because that's not a good business model. You mean you're only going to give someone a blue belt when they're a purple belt level?
Yeah.
They're not going to be around for long, you know? So, yeah, I, because for me it was like, man, what happens in my standard, or what I thought my instructor's standards were, right? What happens if I embarrass my instructor being the level of the belt that I am? Which is, it sounds complete lunacy, like, like really at the end of the day, it shouldn't really matter. It should be about your progress. But I was like that. I was like, I'd be so ashamed to be, like, in my head, like, don't give me that belt, because I'm afraid that I wouldn't be able to honor it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I remember when in Brazil, I was a blue belt, and I passed the selections to represent Porto Alegre, Carlson, Gracie. It was Zuli Jiu-Jitsu to qualify to compete in the Brasileiros, right, in the team. And then I lost. And I was like, man, I was so bummed out. And then, and it just happens, right? Like sometimes you even get extremely biased refs when they know that you're not really Brazilian.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I was going fine until they started shouting in English, like, Adam, grab his gi. This guy's not Brazilian.
Yeah.
Right, so I just remember that though, and I just remember just being really down, and then I was like, you know what, the Rio Grande do Sul Cup is coming up in a couple of months, and I wouldn't say that I'm gonna smash it, right? But I felt like, I think I can really give it a good go. I can at least medal, right, on the podium. And then I think like 3 weeks before, Zamari goes, come here. I was walking to the entrance to the gym, and I'm getting ready, and then he goes, everyone lined up. And I lined up. He goes, all right, just want to let you know who's getting the pro belt today. And I was like, who? He goes, Adam, come up. I was like, what? Wow. And then I went, oh no, oh no. The Copa do Sul, me as a pro belt, oh no. And then Zamario saw it, right? And then he said something that snapped me out. He goes, do you not think I'm capable enough to know when someone is ready for their belt? And I said, yeah. So you don't think that I don't know when to give you your pro belt? I was like, I'm not arguing. I'll take that, right?
Yeah.
But still inside now, I was like, I don't think I'm ready for this,
Yeah.
And then and then I won Copa do Sul as a pro belt. So I was pretty. I was like, all right, I'm not gonna question them, But still inside, yeah.
So if we look at jiu-jitsu, right, in the past 30 years, it's changed a lot. Like, it's gone through so many phases in terms of popularity, and then leaving Brazil and spreading around all over the world, and especially where we are now with no gi being such a big thing and it becoming a bit more of a popular sport. And there's this thing with tradition, right, where tradition is a very positive thing because it keeps the sport intact, and as a community we agree upon certain things like the belt, etc., etc. But then also sometimes that culture and that tradition gets challenged, right? And nowadays with the internet and everything, I find that people don't have as much respect for instructors anymore as they used to. And you have to be careful, because that's a double-edged sword, because there have been a lot of people over the years, black belts and like high-level coaches, that have kind of abused their power over the loyalty and the fact that people are
by
so
using tradition.
by using tradition, right? So that's the one downside to it, and where people start like putting their coaches on a pedestal and worshipping at the altar and doing all those things.
And
but then
those guys abusing that, right? Yeah.
And using that and manipulating. And then you get the opposite side of that spectrum, where a lot of that martial arts value is kind of gone away, where it's like, why should I respect my coach if I can just go to train at another gym, or I could just pay this guy to go do it, or I could just go on YouTube and I can watch this. And kind of that tradition kind of falls away. How important is it for you, especially for somebody who trained in Brazil, you know, so close, you know, to the origin,
Right.
and you were in it, you were training with the Brazilians, and you had to have a lot of respect, especially as a foreigner.
Right.
And in Thailand, it's the same thing, right?
Same thing, yeah.
Same thing. So how important is that for you, and how do you kind of traverse that between those two extremes of, hey, there still has to be those core values, like the martial arts values, respect in the dojo, respect to your master, your sensei, your coach,
Right.
versus also just like, oh, I'm in a full-on cult here. And I'm being taken
I've seen those.
taken for granted financially, mentally, emotionally. Like,
Right. I've never really experienced that, so I have to say I'm pretty lucky. But I have seen it, and I've exit stage left.
yes,
Avoid
yeah.
them. Well, so I come from a traditional background of martial arts in general, right? In regards to judo, karate, and traditional jiu-jitsu, and aikido, and but also like the other arts, right? Where the Southeast Asian arts. The Southeast Asian arts, like Silat and Kalis, you know, they have tradition, heritage, and history, but they're a little bit more relaxed. The Southeast Asian culture is a little bit more relaxed. Like you can even see it, like in Muay Thai, right?
Yeah.
But there is history, there is tradition, right? And like in regards to that, I feel like soft power is important, because especially if you're the coach, it's your responsibility to help build that culture in the gym.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's important to educate. Like you see a lot of these people that I just feel like they just talk too quick without thinking. They're like, oh, you know, if you have to bow to your instructor, turn around and walk the other way, or, you know, because you can slap back at the modern approach where you see everyone goes, all right, ready, 1, 2, 3, right? You never do that in a traditional setting. Like the traditional martial arts that might think a little too highly of himself might go, oof, what's that? But same goes as the modern martial arts. I call it sometimes like fake humility, right? Because like, oh, that's just not cool. I know, have a little bit of humility to actually maybe find out why.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And you know, and as a martial artist, I think, well, you just learn that you're going to be the forever student, right? You're just going to be the student that knows more from the person that comes in later.
Yeah.
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 Like I think like the term sensei is one who's born before. It's not one who's endowed to constantly,
yeah,
you know, flex their authority over. It's just the person that was born before you, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's important that when you are traditional, is that you understand why you do your traditions, right? So when sometimes, you know, like when people are a little bit, and they don't know, right? Like their ignorance can come across as arrogant, so you shouldn't really assume, right?
Yeah.
But if you realize that they know and they still act like that, well, then you're arrogant.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, you know, and that's cool. Some people just don't like it, and you just got to respect that. They're horses for courses, right? But like some people like to take the mickey out of us, right?
Yeah.
Well, find out why they say it. I do. And thank you, Cameron Quinn Sensei, for starting that tradition. And it was an Aussie that started that, lo and behold. You know, like, you know, when people they take the mickey, oh, us. Well, I say us, but also because I also came from a Kyokushin background, right? But like, why do you say us? Like, understand the history of us. Like, mate, get on the internet, right? Find out what it actually means, like Oshishinobu, right? And then when you find out why you say it, now you kind of like, you've armed yourself with this knowledge, and it's galvanized. So when you say it, there's more feeling behind it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then when you bow, people are like, oh, I have to bow to this guy. Yeah, I'm not bowing to the person. I'm bowing to reset my head. Like when I come in here, I have to check my ego. Now, ego is constantly present when people say, leave your ego at the door. Impossible.
Impossible.
Right?
It came in with you.
It came in with you, it's going to be with you, and it's going to leave with you. It's your job to control it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like when you're sparring, you get clipped a bit, and you're like,
It creeps up.
you want to give it back. You're like, no, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Right? And that even happens in play, right? So, like when you bow on the mat, for me, it's not about, oh, I have to submit. No, it's a, okay, reset myself. Because also in regards to longevity, you need good training partners. And and the coach is kind of responsible for making this happen, directly or indirectly, is that the most important person, is your training partner, right?
Yeah.
And then that person in return thinks the same. The most important person on the training mat, on the mat, is the training partner. So when you have two people like that, there's already a healthy respect, you know? So for me, and I understand, it's the tradition and I like the tradition, but I use that as like a tool to reset myself, Not to say, like you have to bow to me, right? Or I have to bow to you. It's more like me having a physical marker to go click, and then, okay, reset myself. Just remember, this is about progress, right? This is about progress, but progress that you enjoy, and progress where you have to accept sometimes it will be challenging. But the cool part is that like my partner's here to walk with me on this journey, And when you have that, it's like, why wouldn't you want to come to that place every day? As soon as you clock off work, can't wait to get there.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
100%.
So yeah, that's the way I look at it.
And right now, what are you working on? What excites you when you go to training? Is there anything specific that you are focusing on for jiu-jitsu, for Muay Thai, for striking? Like a little area that you're like, for the past 3 months, this has captured my attention, or something that you're specifically trying to work on for your own game?
Well, I have my own game, right? Yeah. So I find in gi, the lapel game, really interesting, and still for the life of me, Squid God, Worm God, Della Worm, Polish Worm Rider, all these cool names, right? So I like that, and sometimes it can be really, really like overwhelming with all that stuff. Because as a coach, you should be able to also store a fair bit of knowledge, so then you can help the student, like give him tools and strategies on how to help him develop his game, right? Yeah. So in regards to a coach, you have to know a lot more than just an athlete, right? But for me, if I just get to geek out on myself, I love, as a guard player, single leg X and X. And then I like finding ways that how I can use my like X guard game with the lapel game, so then I can understand the lapel game from other games a little bit better, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Because I feel like if I have to learn lapel game from all these different guards, it's like, whoa. But if I know I can do it most, or recognize the lapel pattern from X guard or close guard, that's another guard that I like to play when I'm on the bottom, I was like, oh, cool, this journey doesn't seem as hectic.
Yeah.
So that's my personal take on, what currently right now what I'm working on. But what I still like today is that no matter how much I teach, there's always something to learn. You know what I mean? Because you're having to deal with different people, and different people will inspire you to get different answers. Yeah. And in an indirect way, it helps you with your journey as well, yeah? So, and what I get a huge kick out of is finding more and more the principles of combat athletics and martial arts, of different disciplines, of how they either overlap or they're identical, right? It's just the perspective that you have to see it from. And then when you see it, it just galvanizes your belief even more, like, yes. And that is it's like those light bulb moments, right?
Yeah.
you know. So yeah, that's personally what I like, is when I get to see like something that the concepts or the ideas or the principles that apply in boxing can even apply to judo, or the concepts and strategies that apply in judo apply to wrestling, and the wrestling can apply to clinch, and then the clinch can apply to jiu-jitsu, and then it's just, and then at the end also, of course, right, is how it can apply to self-defense. That's why I like to say, like, when I first started training with like the team Carlson Gracie guys, is I noticed that a lot of their game, their strength wasn't that they had such a huge diversity of techniques when it came to different aspects of jiu-jitsu. Like there's the self-defense, there's the professional fighting, there's the gi, and then the no gi.
No gi, yeah.
I just love it how it's pretty much all the way the same through, with minor variations and adjustments, temperaments and attitudes, right? But when I say like, it applies to just like in self-defense, and it applies exactly how it is in MMA or Vale Tudo, and it applies exactly the same in gi, and then no gi, and it's just like, wow, for me that's a real kick, because I feel like if you can just kind of almost like distill that and bottle that and package it, when a beginner comes, you can help them say, hey, it's not as overwhelming as you think, but I want you to help. I want to help you see that. You see how you don't have to be worried about this vast array of ocean of different techniques for these different parts of jiu-jitsu, right? It runs across the same. So then the root, right, is strong.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then when you want to branch out, and you do your own thing, but you'll always have that commonality. And when I keep seeing that over and over and over again, it's reassuring.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So obviously coming out for a seminar, we've had the privilege of training with you. I've seen you in action, right? But then at the same time, you always know what a coach's true ability is when you see him on a random Tuesday or a random Wednesday teaching at their gym, right? And I've been privileged enough to see you actually coach like the kids class and then an evening class in Bangkok on a random weekday. And just what strikes me is just like
my bad jokes.
Your bad jokes, horrible, but they stick with you, so somehow I remember everything. Right? But on a serious, like your motivation and your attention, and just like I told my wife when we were there, I'm like, is this guy on steroids, caffeine, something else? Because like you literally came from teaching kids class straight into an evening class, and your motivation was like through the roof. And it doesn't matter what you do or how long you've done it or how passionate you are about anything, you're going to go through slumps, right? Sometimes you're up, sometimes you're down. So how do you manage motivation and staying motivated? Because a lot of training and a lot of coaching can sometimes be really draining, especially if you haven't had a break for a while, or you're overtraining a little bit, or it's stressful, like your guys are competing and it's quite a hectic competition season. How do you kind of reset and keep yourself just motivated and going at that gear all the time? Is it just intense passion, or is it just you just genuinely enjoy being there,
right,
you enjoy the people? Do you think it's a combination of factors, or is there one specific thing? And have you ever struggled with motivation? As a coach overall?
As a coach. I think maybe with my issues as a kid, that maybe was misdiagnosed with my ability to learn, maybe like when I was a kid, I just remember always feeling like stupid, like not enough, right? Because I was always easily distracted, or like, why can't I stay consistent with studies and stuff? And I just always remember struggling to learn, and I just always thought, man, if I ever meet a teacher that could help, right? Whether it's to motivate you or to actually help you out with like technical things in regards to learning. I just thought, man, I never wanted. What's the word I'm looking for? Like, if my motivation was that the younger Adam, right? I would want to be that teacher that was there to help him. Do you know what I mean? Because I struggled a lot in the beginning in schools with learning, and I would mask it with just being a smartass, I suppose.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I think my drive is that in martial arts helped me a lot. It gave me a safe haven to run to when I was a kid. But I thought if I could be that person to help, what would my strength be? And I would definitely be in the martial arts, right? And then like problem solving, and then helping someone get through that rut, right? And say, hey man, don't worry, listen, I got you. We're gonna figure this out. And then what's the kick is then how you see them evolve. Bah, that's so cool. I used to think like chasing belts and medals was cool, but when you see someone grow and develop, that's just pretty awesome as well.
As a coach, there's nothing better. There's no better feeling.
No better feeling, yeah. Definitely.
Especially if it's the kid that struggles, right? Or the kid that's distracted, and then you just keep believing in them. You're like, don't worry. And then sometimes in the back of your head, I'm like, I don't know, man. But then you're like, no, just keep. And then one day, out of nowhere, and you're like, whoa, where did that come from? You know? There's no better feeling as a coach.
Yeah, and as much as I don't want to push my daughter into like, I never try to make her feel like she has to do jiu-jitsu. But when she does do jiu-jitsu, and then the best of my knowledge, when I'm, it's hard to separate coach dad. So sometimes you just have to be coach dad, right? Coach and dad. But then like, for me, it's like when my daughter gets something and it clicks, I'm like, So yeah. As a coach, when you see that happen, that's something special, So my motivation, I think, I always liked martial arts, and I like using it as a tool to help people, get better in whatever aspect in life that it can help benefit, and then also just like geeking out on combat, whether it's ancient combat, modern combat, combat athletics. So yeah, I know I liked playing rugby, I liked playing basketball, but I enjoyed team sports where it was still the individual. If that, it sounds a little bit selfish, but like when you win as a team, you're like, win as a team. But then when you say, I won. Yeah, because I'm not to say that, listen, you can't get good by yourself, right?
No.
Like when you go in alone into the combat arena, you don't go in by yourself. You carry your teammates that come and helped you and trained you, right? And pulled you through the hard times, and then, magnified the good times. But I always liked going there saying, if I lost, it was on me.
Yeah.
But not to say that if I won, it was all on me. But in a kind of way, it is you, and the people that help supported that recognize that as well, and vice versa. When you're the teammate and you see your friend go in there, and they take the knocks, but they also get the wins, it's for me, I like that, because it's like, because they always say, thanks to you. It's like, no, you decided to cross that threshold to get in there. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Whether it's competition or even if it's just stepping onto the mat, like it takes two, mate, no matter which way you cut it. Do you know what I mean? So, that was always my take. In like, I did okay at sports, in team sports, but I felt like I always excelled when it was just me and the other person.
Same.
Yeah.
It's a privilege.
No worries, brother. Thank you, Ed.
Good.
Cheers.
Sweet.